All right. Well, welcome. Welcome to Biopharma Talk. This is a new live streaming production from the Biopharma Institute, where we'll be discussing important issues with interesting and knowledgeable people from a variety of backgrounds and with diverse experiences. I'm Terry Carmichael, the host of today's show. We'll see if I'll be hosting other shows, and I'm pleased that you are all joining us. So today, we're going to be discussing topics around COVID-19, particularly around getting vaccinated and how to interact with those who've decided against getting vaccinated. It should be a really enlightful conversation here. We've got two highly knowledgeable guests today joining us and to help discuss these topics. First, we have Kristen Brewer. How you doing, Kristen?
I'm doing great, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, thanks for being here. In early 2020, Kristen left a long career as a litigation attorney to get back to the arts. And we'll probably learn more about that later on in the show. But after she left, prosecutor and an attorney and has retired and enjoying the arts, she found herself at home with a lot of time on her hands and in the middle of a pandemic, which took her life into an interesting turn. So over the last few months, Kris has been booking vaccine appointments and creating online tutorials and leading COVID-related training programs for Epicenter, New York City, Epicenter NYC, a New York-based newsletter and robust volunteer community. Welcome, Kris.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And our second guest here is Douglas Levy. He's a communication expert with deep knowledge and expertise in crisis and management. We're excited to have you on board, Doug.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Terry.
All right, great. Doug is an author and, of course, a communication specialist. He's written a book called The Communications Guide for Coronavirus, Best Practices for Business Leaders. So we're excited to hear from Doug. And he also has another book that he's written a couple years earlier called The Communications Golden Hour, Essential Guide to Public Information When Every Minute Counts. A great book, and you should pop on to Amazon and order a copy today if you're going to try to manage any crisis or emergency. So both of you guys have been deeply in tune to the COVID pandemic. It seems as every day we have new developments happening, and mostly it seems we're seeing some type of brighter light coming through this tunnel. And for example, I say that the trains in New York City will begin running full schedules in May. So we're very excited to hear about that. I think the first question today, topics I'm going to direct to you, Kris, and I'm sure Doug will chime in as well. Let's talk about shifting the vaccine distribution model. From appointments, there's a variety of different
Terry, did I lose you? Doug, I think you're muted. Uh-oh.
We're just leaving you entirely on your own.
That's fine. I can go. I'll say this. In the last couple of months, I've been volunteering to help people who have access issues or having challenges in booking their vaccine appointments. And we've had a huge shift in the last few weeks from having a lot of people seeking assistance to not needing so much assistance, or at least not requesting so much assistance. We have appointments that are now available and aren't getting taken as quickly as they were. And it was a very sudden shift. And I guess supply now has outpaced the immediate demand. And that's been a big change. But it's a good thing, and we want to make sure people know that they can get an appointment. It's still not necessarily a particularly easy thing to navigate, and we're still available to assist anyone who still needs the help. And there are definitely communities that need the help in ways that one might not expect. it might, my life's experience is very different from that of others, and remembering that in the ways that we reach out to them is key, I think.
You just said something really important. It's that we've got to make sure we understand that not everybody else is just like you. And what's easy for you may be difficult for me. And things that we take for granted may not be easy. And there are a lot of people, I mean, the data is telling us there's a lot of people who are at least open to getting the vaccine, but it's not the top priority for them. They don't want to take time or can't take time off of work, or there's various obstacles. So the public health folks are starting to get creative with ways to get the vaccines out to more people. And we're, as you mentioned, we're starting to see in some places much more supply, so people could, in many places, just walk in and get a shot, which is awesome.
Yep. We have walk-ins in New York, but making sure that everyone who would like to get the shot knows what time, where to go, and when it's the system is many-headed. There are, there's a state system and a city system, and then pop-ups that are happening, and the information is not always in one spot. And if you're a person who isn't accustomed to navigating a complex situation like that, you might still need a hand. But it's a different kind of help than what organizations such as the one that I've been with, it's a different kind of help, and it's a more nuanced kind of help, and it does require that everyone stop doing the very human thing, which is to assume that other people's lives are like my own, and to remember that the assumptions you place on what somebody else needs or wants may not actually be correct. And so to ask, what do you need? Or to be observant about what are people requesting of me, it has, is now the task.
What kinds of questions do you find? Because I'm hearing people who haven't gotten the vaccine yet. Frequently, it's not because they don't want the vaccine, but they've got some doubts or they've got some questions, and they're not sure who to turn to for information. And I know the federal government has been doing, and other officials have been trying very hard to get more information out through, community leaders and church leaders and so on. But the people that you're encountering, what kinds of questions do they have, and have you seen those questions change?
I have seen some of those questions change, but honestly, it's not, the people who are coming to us are still people who say, I want the vaccine. So we are starting to get more out into the space of, engaging with people and saying, would you like a vaccine? We recently had like a table where people walking by in the street could walk up and sign up and say, I would like the vaccine. The place where you encounter people who are like, I'm not quite sure, is when I've booked one spouse and the second spouse is like, I'm not ready for that yet. Even sometimes in my own family, one person who wants it, another person in the household is a little more hesitant. And everybody has their own reasons. Sometimes they're much more staunch. I know that the Times did an article in the last few days about very reflexive type of, particular types of thinking that feed into real resistance. And there are people who are very resistant, but a lot of people are interested or curious, or they have a question, and they'll say things like, oh, it seems like it was developed so quickly. And you just engage and try to avoid judgment or try to avoid turning it into a confrontational situation. For myself, and this is just me speaking for how I do it, I'm no expert on the psychology of these things, but I try to just, be respectful and say, okay, if you feel that way, I respect your hesitancy. However, if other information leads you to a different conclusion, I'm always here. And just make sure that they know that I'm not going to think less of them if they come to me a week later and say, you know what, okay, I'll do it. Or, my wife wants me to get it, so I'll do it. Give them the space to move to that new decision. That's just,
I think that plus making it so that so there's less reason to not go through with it.
Right. That I think is really the key. I think that we have jumped too quickly I don't even know if it's just my opinion. I think we've jumped too quickly to the resistant folk, that we're skipping over people who with more robust convenience or access or outreach would get it. And I don't want to leap over those situations, because there are people whose lives are, there's the very online, like myself and others. And then there are people who are very, very not online. There are people who walk through life who don't have an email address, and they're fine. So if we're getting information out primarily via the internet, they're not going to see it until somebody tells it to them.
And people naturally kind of hear the worst stuff and get worried. I mean, I heard of somebody a couple of days ago who wasn't going to get his second shot because he had heard so many other people having really bad reactions, headaches and chills and stuff.
Fevers.
That, he needed some persuasion.
And what did you say to him?
It turned out it was that he didn't. He needed help arranging time off of work and childcare responsibilities and things like that. And when others were able to help him sort those things out, he got the second shot.
Right. And I think that there are also people who just need a hand sorting. You're right. The logistics of it. This is perhaps 2 shots. You might need to be planning for a couple of days. And I can do that. But there's a lot of other folks for whom those are bigger challenges. And meeting people where they are, since we do, we're all safer when everyone is safer together. We need everyone to have that same access. We need to, address those but it's a much more particularized set of needs than round 1, which was just get as much of it out there as fast as possible to as many arms as possible. This is a little more nuanced.
Yeah, very nice. Very nicely said.
Sorry, we lost you there, Terry. Welcome back.
Well, it's the perils of living in a COVID environment, a pandemic.
Well handled.
So I think we're all getting used to this. And that was just one example of some of the frustrations we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I appreciate you guys carrying it on without me. And,
glad you're back.
Yes. So let's transition to Doug. I mean, I don't know if I couldn't hear what you guys were talking about. I really liked it. I just got in on the tail end, but the topic that really interests me is interacting with those who, may disagree with getting a vaccine. They're hell bent on not getting back.
Oh no, Terry.
One of the things that I think people have to remind themselves is that everybody's got their own opinions, and their opinion is valid to them, and it doesn't matter what you think about it. So you may have a negative opinion of somebody who's refusing or not yet getting the vaccine, but focus more on what you need to do to keep yourself safe and comfortable, more than criticizing or ostracizing someone else. Now, I know a lot of people, myself included, who I am avoiding people who I know are not taking precautions, whether it's getting a vaccine or wearing a mask, whatever. But I'm also very confident that those of us who have been vaccinated are pretty darn safe in comparison. So we can be less nervous about the other people's actions and just act prudently ourselves. And eventually, enough people around those folks are likely to get vaccinated that at some point they may come around.
It makes a lot of sense. Okay, now it's just you're muted, Terry. I think we're otherwise good.
Thank you very much. Now I'm not muted, right? Thank you.
You're good.
For pointing that out.
Sure.
I'm just a moving mouth here.
Hey, listen, we're all in it together, which is another theme of the entire pandemic.
No. Well, I've got an interesting story, actually. I know somebody who works in an office, and there's somebody in the office that doesn't.
So that's a really interesting case. There actually was a paper published about a week ago that showed what happens when one non-vaccinated person who's been careless goes to a social gathering or other place where even people have been careful. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was, I believe, one infected person went to a dinner and there were 17 cases as a result of that one person. That one person worked in a place that had been cited for not following COVID protocols. And it turned out that one of the variants of concern was spreading among people at that work site. At the social gathering, they weren't following protocols either. Some of the people were vaccinated, but one person going into a group, close quarters indoors, 17 other cases. You don't really want to be that person, do you? I mean, that's what we want people to understand. It's like, if you are not taking precautions, you potentially are risking other people.
However, if everyone else at the gathering is vaccinated, what do we think then?
If everybody else at the gathering was vaccinated, and being generally cautious. So if when you're eating, you're not wearing your mask. So maybe a few extra feet between people is a good idea. Making sure there's good ventilation, probably a good idea. We know that some of the variants do break through the vaccines, although we now have evidence accumulating that you have some protection against even the worst of the variants. So it's absolutely better than not having anything at all. People who don't have any vaccine are the ones who are more likely to die. And if you're vaccinated, you are pretty well protected from all that we're seeing so far. So that's a pretty good incentive. So yeah, take precautions everywhere and all the time, and we'll all be safe.
Yeah, I think that's a good message, and I am back. Thank you. And I do have a voice, I guess. But yeah, Doug, that's a good message, and I don't know if that message is being clearly presented to the public. The message is that you're not only protecting yourself. I mean, that's so important. Is people who get vaccinated don't go into the hospitals. They don't die. I mean, this is important. And then, the second thing is, not being as infectious. You aren't going to spread it as quickly. So we'll all get to that herd immunity level. And that's what's important. I mean, we got to play like a team, right?
We do, but I think there's another thing that we've all experienced over the course of the last year, each of us to varying degrees based on our own situations. And that is just, there's a lot of anxiety and fear around what we experienced, seeing friends and loved ones getting sick, or even just, consistent news stories about you're safe, you're privileged and blessed and lucky to be home in a safe environment. But we've just constantly been seeing all of the pain and upset around the world. Knowing that you have the vaccine in your corner in that situation where someone has been not cautious and you weren't aware of it, you're being careful, but it just takes a layer of stress and anxiety that perhaps you didn't even know you were carrying. I feel better, and I hear the same from a lot of my friends. So, even if it's just a small change in your day to day, if you feel better, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah. That's a good point. We should all feel good about getting vaccinated, and it's taking advantage of today and our technology today. It's just amazing that we've been able to develop a vaccine in such a short period of time. Not only one, but several vaccines, and they're out there, they're available, and it's important that we take advantage of that. It's only for our health and everyone else's health. So I hate to bring up bad news, but we see what's happening in India. And India, we know, is a very crowded country, and I'm sort of surprised they're hitting levels this late in the game. I would have thought that the pandemic would have hit them much more quickly. You have any ideas on that? Let's go to Doug. Doug?
Well, I'm not an epidemiologist, but from what I understand from the people in India that I've talked to and heard from in the scientific literature, it appears that India made a couple of big mistakes. One of them was taking their early success for granted. They were on the same trajectory as many other countries last year and managed to fairly quickly stop the spread. They absolutely went from in the danger zone to pretty well controlled, and essentially reopened everything. And then the part that is just tragic is that India has a tremendous pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. They were exporting more doses of vaccine than they were keeping to use within India itself, because some people seem to think they didn't need it. And now they don't have enough, and the number of people who are getting sick and dying every day in the last 14 days is just horrifying. Mm-hmm. Had those vaccines been used in India, some of those people would be alive, and now they need to roll out that vaccine as fast as possible. It won't save everybody, but it'll save some.
Yeah. That's yeah. So where were those vaccines going? They were selling them to the U.S., I bet.
No. The U.S. vaccines are all manufactured within the United States, with the exception of the first 4 million doses of the J&J shot.
Okay. Where were those? In the
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay.
Those were produced at the same at one of the factories that's producing that shot for the rest of the world. But I mean, one of the things the federal government has been doing since 2006, I think, has been trying to build up a domestic manufacturing capability for health emergencies like this. And it's a process, it's a struggle, but it's really important because we don't want to be like India, where we're producing stuff and exporting it when we need it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, where are we at now with vaccination? I think we have 40% of the population vaccinated.
It's not quite that number. So about 130 million have been vaccinated. I think, let's see, I'm going to see if I can pull the numbers exactly. About 1 out of every 3 adults have had at least one shot, which is awesome. Yeah. And in some places it's even higher, but in a lot of places it's lower. So you've got some counties where it's 80% have been fully vaccinated. You've got some places where it's 20%, and we've got to bring that gap closer together, because until everybody is, until we have every community with most people vaccinated, there's going to continue to be a fairly high risk.
Yeah, and Doug, when we say most people, we're talking about all ages. So we do have a restriction. We can't vaccinate anyone under the age of 16 right now. Yes. Hopefully, do you have any idea when, we'll be able to vaccinate the younger groups?
So one of the vaccine makers has submitted data to the FDA for 12 to 16-year-olds, and that's expected to be reviewed soon. I think my guess is that will happen, could be in the next month or two.
Do you think we'll have to,
children a bit longer?
Do you think we'd be vaccinating anyone younger than that, younger than 12?
Eventually, yeah, by the end of the year, probably. The issue is that when you start dealing with the 16 and under, it's probably not going to be at your local pharmacy. Those shots are more likely to be administered at local pediatrician offices, for example. Mm-hmm. And part of that is we want people to have opportunities to ask questions of somebody they trust, somebody they already have a relationship with.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, I know that we got a hard stop here, like 6 minutes ago. So are we all right? Any last words? I mean, Kris, I know that you've been helping people get vaccinated. You're seeing things have changed a lot. Anything that you would like to see different in the coming weeks or months that would help more people get vaccinated more quickly?
I think that now that we can, in most communities, everyone who's 16 and up can get the shot. more of us have it. And I think that just making sure we talk to our friends about it and make sure that if we have any friends who are expressing some ambivalence about it, that we reach into their world in a way that respects their wishes and see if they need a hand. Don't be shy about talking to people in a respectful and open way about, hey, I got my shot. I feel good about it. I'm glad I did it. Can I help you?
Yeah.
And reach out and because we need each other to get through this. For some people, there are some serious challenges still to getting vaccinated, whether it's technology or language or just the time in their life. I'm fully vaccinated. Could I watch your kids that day so that you can go? Various ways that we can reach into the worlds of other people and reduce the barriers they may be experiencing to going and getting vaccinated. This is still a team effort.
It's a team effort. Yeah, that's a good tip. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to wear my sticker here, that I got vaccinated and be proud of
Love it.
Yeah, Doug, anything that we should have or could have or should be doing now to, manage this crisis, I guess. You're the expert there. Any last words on what we need to do?
The two most important things are to recognize that this is not going to, it's not like a light switch that gets turned on and off. We're going to be living with this for a long time, no matter how well controlled it is. So we've got to just sort of accept that and live with it in a positive way. So the vaccine enables us to go out and do a lot of things safely, embrace it, recognize that you still need to take precautions in many situations. And the other thing is listen and respect those that you deal with who may have a different point of view, because we're not going to solve anything by arguing over whether the vaccine is safe or not, but you can share reasons why you feel comfortable with it and why you think it's a good idea.
Very good.
Could I throw in one last thing?
Of course, Kris.
This may sound very basic, but there are some people who are not aware that it is free and that no insurance is required. And if you happen to be talking to someone who is not yet vaccinated, those are things that might be worth working into the convo, because sometimes that's just not, I don't see that a lot of the publication of it said free vaccination for COVID-19. And people just don't know that. It may seem basic, but it's not. And making sure that people know it should be right in that conversation.
Yeah, and I think I saw Dr. Fauci behind you whisper that into your ear. See, plug that, Kris. Don't forget to say it. Well, I appreciate both you guys being on the show, and I'm super sorry for all these technical issues that have popped up and me coming in and out. I did find a webcam that actually won't go out on me, and so I'll have to use this next time. But we'd like to invite you guys both on again as more developments come, and we could learn more and discuss this and help people understand it in more detail, which is so important. We all need to understand what we're fighting here and that we're all a team. So thank you very much for being here, both of you.
Thanks,
Kris and Doug. I appreciate it, and good luck to both of you, okay?
You too.
Let's continue to fight.